Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. So welcome to the show. How are you today?
Doing really well, Crystal. Thanks so much for having me.
I have been really enjoying your website, watching your music videos. I love the conspiracy music video. Like, that was so good. It's like,
Thank you.
We're going to have to share that in the show notes. But I want to go back to your roots. You're originally from Boston. You moved to Paris in 2017. Talk a little bit about that journey.
Okay, well, let's see. Lots of twists and turns, as there are for everybody listening, but I am a Bostonian. I went to school in New York. I ended up back in Boston after 8 years in New York. And my older brother moved to Paris. And at a certain point, he said, you've got to come visit me, and, we'll do some, so I went like over a Thanksgiving holiday and I visited him. And I started doing shows in Paris and meeting other musicians in town. And I felt something that just made me feel inspired and good. And no doubt part of it was just discovering the beauty of Paris. And probably the third layer was not understanding the language and being able to kind of ride high on all of the gorgeous architecture and delicious food and things like that. So I made the leap and moved to Paris like a year and a half after I first visited. In that time, I had also met my partner, who I married last year, and really sort of settled into French life gradually. I think I'm probably still settling into French life, but that's kind of how it happened.
It's an ongoing journey settling into French life, right? Congratulations.
I kind of regret the choice of the word settling, because it's not that. It's a really robust and interesting experience, but oh my gosh, it doesn't feel like settling. It feels much more vibrant and sometimes challenging than that, as I think like anybody who is living in another country would certainly understand. And thank you.
Definitely. And I think I was saying before we started recording, we chose like the most difficult routes possible. We married foreigners. We live in a foreign country. We run our own businesses. Yeah. Like, it's like, how many levels of difficult can we add to our lives, but I think we like challenges. That's what creativity is about, right?
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
And so your foundation is in jazz and Latin jazz. Talk a little bit about what the difference is between the two.
Sure. So basically, it's hilarious, but I started off wanting to be a folk singer, and there aren't many, conservatory level programs in folk music. So when I went to school to get my bachelor's, and I wanted to study music, there was this real binary choice outside of Berkeley and a couple of other schools. The choice is really, do you want to study classical music or jazz? And jazz is a true American music form. I was double majoring in, I changed my double major a few times from Latino studies to Spanish, and then more broadly to Romance languages. And I really liked the fact that I could bring in my love of language. My family is Italian Argentine, so bringing in some of that warmth of Latin music was really interesting for me and really personal. It was music that I grew up with, where jazz was something I acquired and really had to steep myself in a very disciplined way, which is also very cool. But it allowed me to explore, particularly music of Latin America, like sambas, bossa nova, the Nueva Canción movement, which was a folk music movement out of what you call Cono Sur, or Chile, Argentina, tango music, lots of different folkloric forms and different rhythms that are have a different kind of African root history that's really beautiful. So yeah, I really just enjoyed digging into some of that because it was a complementary and also really personal feeling road to take. And I fell in love with Brazilian music as a teenager, visiting some family in Argentina. Caetano Veloso was on TV, and I just saw him performing, and it was like time stopped. It was a real touchstone moment, a real opening for me in terms of being a musician. He's still someone whose music I absolutely love. He's called the Bob Dylan of Brazil because he's had such a long and prolific career, and he's influenced so many other people. But he really opened a way for me to discover so many other Brazilian artists in particular. And it was just such a natural thing for me to want to continue with that and want to bring into my sort of scholastic pursuit of music. And, by the time I graduated, I was, performing and singing in English and Spanish and Portuguese. And because I loved it so much and so organically, I think, I developed great pronunciation in Brazilian Portuguese, to the degree that it's impressive to Brazilians, and they have a hard time hearing that I'm not a Brazilian Portuguese speaker. So that was really cool.
That is cool. I mean, it's difficult language, and it sounds like you've mastered a couple now. So good for you. I mean, and also to trick locals with the accent. I mean, obviously you have an ear for it. And now you've kind of moved into more of an indie pop genre. You're performing in Paris. Talk a little bit about moving into indie pop and what it's like to perform in Paris.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, Parisians are actually a great audience, and a really mixed audience. Sometimes, your Paris audience is going to be, half foreign. And sometimes they're really open-minded French people. I feel like music fans are very open-minded. So that's really cool. But I would say, I started to go to indie pop because I felt like it allowed me to explore different narratives. Where when I was working in Latin jazz, the music I was exploring was really romantic. And I loved that. But gosh, I at some point kind of felt trapped by it. So when I decided to turn my skill set over to indie pop, it was because I wanted to tell different kinds of stories. And so my last EP that, gosh, I released a long time ago now, it was 2018, was called Bicycle Wheel. And that was inspired by a work of art by the French artist Marcel Duchamp, and this sort of mischievous spirit that I think his work conveys. And so I wanted basically just to tell different types of stories. And I think different types of art draw out certain narrative possibilities. And that's part of, a dynamic journey is finding out how we as artists can continue to discover. So I think we're all kind of looking for that. Like how do we get that next inspiration that really is connecting and authentic feeling and has this kind of intrinsic reward. And all of that said, when we do that, sharing our work in public, it feels, I think, extra special. So yeah.
Definitely. And I think like we're all chasing that next excitement, like what lights up our soul, what is moving us in that moment. And obviously that's changing from day to day and year to year. And I know that during the pandemic, you spanned your work into more of the visual arts. You were painting and drawing. Talk a little bit about that and how that's overlapped with your music.
Yeah. So, gosh, the pandemic, I think it's so interesting. I've talked to a number of people that, I know in the wider context, the pandemic is kind of a dirty word. And it certainly cost a lot of people and it hurt people and people died, and we can't ignore those types of realities. But for those of us who were, I would say at home on a certain level, I think we had this opportunity to look at the time look at the time of our lives, or look at our lives in a different way, where we lost a lot of the things that would orient us in our lives. And, we had a small opportunity to hit a reset and to explore things that I don't think we would have explored without the pandemic. And, we could say life's always like that. It's about what's going on around you and how you're responding. It's part of how not just how we live, but definitely how we make art. So, we had this restriction, as you know, because I'm sure you lived it too, where we couldn't leave our apartments, right? So I am really lucky because behind my building, we have a little garden area with like potted plants. And I started to just go out there because, there was this moment during the pandemic where I remember being fearful and not really understanding, what are we facing and how is this all going to work out? And particularly being far from home, being far from family. So I started to go out into this garden space and really look at the flowers because they were what I had access to. And I, started to bring my iPad, and I would do digital sketches or bring a pad and paper and do physical sketches, and eventually started to create a number of highly detailed artworks of flowers that are kind of common flowers here in France, like poppies and roses and anemones, which are such, I think, one of the funniest flower names I've heard. I hope I'm saying it right too. And yeah, so in doing that, it was really interesting because I found another way to sort of center myself and I think, to create something that I hoped would allow a viewer to have a similarly centering experience. The theme of nature is really important to me, and transformation is really important to me. The idea of sort of being able to get your roots down in the world enough and feel settled enough to really be in your being, to really, how do I say this a different way? I think that, nature has a way of being, offering us a route to transformation, offering us a moment of introspection. It can be a very deepening experience to even look at a flower is what I discovered. And I wanted to share that. So my goal with doing that whole floral series was not to share them. It was really doing them because I like process-oriented activities. And and it was another process-oriented art form. But as I shared them with my friends and, just kind of went through and said, oh, I'm doing this and check this out. People started saying things to me like, I want to buy that. So that was an interesting thing. And so last year I did my first gallery show and had my first art sales. And that was really interesting. I always see myself, and I am a musician first and foremost. And but it's just been a kick. It's just been another adventure to have to be able to, to paint and draw and discover. And I think that, that's something I know your podcast is really about, this kind of openness to the arts, where you don't have to wait to, get a degree to dive in and to have that experience of making something.
Definitely. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is just like say to people like, hey, just try, and just like what you did during the pandemic, just literally being stuck, like grounding yourself, checking out what's around you, and then being inspired to do something that was healing just for you. It wasn't even about money or any of that. That just kind of came later unexpectedly. And I think, it's all about just making the art for the art. Like, don't think about anything else but dedicating yourself to that in the beginning. And I know, especially when we want to make money from our creativity, that's tough because it's like, I want to sell this. I want to make some money. But then other times, it's just about the healing and just being in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, that is a kind of pure joy. You're not trying to sell anything, that you're getting something back in the moment, which is that innate satisfaction of creating.
That's so true. And I hope that more people will be inspired to do that through the show. And I know a lot of people are dreaming of moving to Paris and maybe being an artist there. And, they have the Hemingways in their heads or the thinkers or whatever. And what has been your feeling as, someone who's immigrated as a creative? Like, was there something that surprised you about being an artist in Paris? What were some of the things that you didn't expect being an artist there?
I've experienced being an artist in New York and being an artist in Boston. I think that maybe in coming to Paris, I was declaring a kind of freedom. Like, it was a kind of call for freedom and a reassertion of autonomy in a way. Like, we all need each other. We all need the society we come from, a community around us. We all need, I think, the vast majority of us need love and friendship. And but I think it was a way for me to sort of get away from some of the things that I didn't like about my life in the States, if I'm to be totally honest, where I was, found myself as an artist doing an inordinate amount of coaching just to make a living, just to pay off my college loans. And before I left the States, I spent, and this is not like an inordinate amount of time. So, I'm sure someone out there is going to chuckle at me, but I spent 4 months working as a real estate agent, which as a musician and an artist is it's an unusual job. For somebody else in a different company, it probably would have been fine. But somehow I ended up in this real alpha male office where, a friend had told me, oh, sure, you want to, make a little more money, right, to pay off your student loans. Just do real estate for a summer. It'll be easy. Now, those are like the most hilarious and famous last words ever, because it is one of the things that was not easy. I worked about 80 hours a week in order to finish paying off my college loans and was able to move to France debt free. And that was huge for me. But I think that, I come from an immigrant family, and I'm the first that I know of, the first woman in my family, or the first person in my family that just up and moved countries because I wanted to, not because of an incredible hardship or, corrupt government or, or some other like incredibly stressful experience. And I did it because I wanted to. I also felt that I was entering into conversation with my ancestors in a way, because I think when you are, from an immigrant family, your family doesn't sit you down and talk about their struggle. Like they don't talk about like, and I'm speaking kind of generally because there will be exceptions to this, but I think like in general, people don't sit you down and say like, that was really hard for us and moving here was really challenging, and let me tell you about it. It's like they want you to be free. You're the next generation, and now you've been placed in this new place and you're living their dream for you, and they want you to be free. So, you don't necessarily get that narrative thread. It kind of just gets cut. And I think in coming to France, where I have no roots and no long-term relationship and no heritage here, I was kind of doing a little bit of like forensic reconstruction, where I wanted to have that experience of, of being foreign, of being truly 100% foreign and having this big adventure. And, and I absolutely have had it.
Yeah, definitely. If you're looking for adventure, like, come on over.
Absolutely. As well as a high number of buttery goods, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like butter, we are the place. Well, I think it's really inspiring that you were able to just jump in and do it and go for it. Like you said, you had no reason to really want to go there besides like, no roots, anything like that. You just make it work. And I think that's a story from a lot of the artists we hear from Paris and France. And they're just like, hey, I wanted an adventure. And I think kind of in a way we all come thinking, oh, we'll just give it a year, have some fun, like we don't know what's going to happen. And then it's like that domino effect where it's like, oh, well, 10 years later, here I am, now I'm a citizen, whatever. So it's true for everybody who wants to start an adventure. It's like, just dive in, because it's going to domino in ways you can't expect, like meeting your partner or whatever happens,
Sure.
And how would you define creativity in your own words?
I guess I would define it as openness and maybe a willingness to make mistakes. A willingness to put some instrument either in your hands or to use your voice, because I'm a singer. So, but ultimately employing, body, mind, and spirit towards play, and having a willingness to make a mess, to make mistakes, is absolutely essential in that process.
I love that. Yeah, definitely mess making is involved in multiple levels. So very cool. And what is some of the best advice you've ever been given?
Gosh, I think that my teachers in college, before I graduated, sort of looked at me when I asked them for advice and basically said, I have no idea how you're going to make it. And actually, I think that non-advice advice may have been the best advice I ever got, because what they said to me was, you're going to find your way. You're going to find your way so that you can make a living in the arts, and nobody can tell you how you're going to do it.
Yeah. And it's reassuring in some ways, because they're like, you'll figure it out. Can't tell you how, but go for it.
It's utterly honest, because I thought they were withholding from me at the time. I was like, oh, sure. Like, that's kind of a lazy answer, don't you think? Like, damn, like that's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? I've just graduated, and instead of learning some big secret, I look behind, what is it? You get to Oz and you meet the wizard, and it's like, some guy with a microphone, right? It's like where you cannot know what you're gonna face. And, I do think, my family always said to me, two things: be strong, be kind. And I think that's a pretty great motto. I think life necessitates that we are or we be resilient. And but I think ultimately nobody can tell you where things are going to go. And anybody who gives you advice that's like, let me structure this for you and make it neat could very well be well-meaning but misleading. So like, I don't know, I kind of enjoy the fact that my teachers were like, we have no idea how you're going to make it. We have full confidence in you, but everybody's journey is different. So, you have the skills, and just, know that you have the skills. So maybe that was their real advice was, you have the skills, trust that you have, what you have is really enough. And, round that out with be strong, be kind. And there you have it. That serves me really well, to this day.
I love it. I think that's great advice. And the whole trust yourself. I think that's something that we all struggle with, because we're all like, this is crazy. Do I want to trust myself? Like, how is this going to work? But at the end of the day, we're always striving, no matter what it is, whether it's creative or just life, we're striving to be okay. So like, we're going to do everything in our power to make that happen. And like you said, it's going to happen. You just have to trust that you will make it happen.
Well, I don't know how you feel about it as an American, but sometimes I feel like we are so ambitious. And of course, as artists, we don't have a lot of structure, like sort of built around us, where that is something you let go of when you're not employed by another person and you're not, working in service to someone else's dreams, where they kind of dole out your work like in little blocks. So I think sometimes like we don't perceive like the scale of the labor we're taking on and the passion we're going at things with, because, there was a certain point I looked at like my to-do list for a year and went, actually, what I've done here is identify my lifelong values, hopes, and dreams. Like, these are the things I hope I can accomplish over a lifetime, not between now and next year. And like, that was kind of liberating. But I just think like, how can you know that when you're, when you're creative, except from living through it,
Yeah, it's so true. And we have to wear so many hats, and like we have to be, ambitious, but at the same time, it is our calling. It is our baby, if you want to call it that. Like, we're so dedicated to this creative child that we're like, we will do whatever it takes. And it's like that whole joke about working an 80-hour week to avoid a 40-hour week, just because we love it and we want to make it work. So yeah, definitely. I think that's great advice. And what are some of the things you're excited about for the future, your future projects, what's coming out?
Yeah, I've got an album that will be coming out this year, and I think I'm going to release it as singles because albums are kind of I don't want to say they're a dead format. They're a really great format. But there can be a real advantage to putting work out more regularly. So as it is, I've got a 10 song album, which is completed and it's beautiful. And it's a real journey of an album when viewed cohesively, and really gets into themes of transformation and love's complexity and nature's sanctuary, and these kinds of things, all within a sonic landscape that is in my view is very beautiful, that really engages me, and I hope will give that to other people. I'm also, when it comes to the visual art stuff, I think that this is, again, like kind of stuff that makes me laugh. When you ask me about making visual art and then, having someone say to me, oh, I would really like to buy that. And then having another person say it and then doing a gallery show, it just seemed to be this invitation to want to sell my work. Like, that's the obvious next step. And it's been absolutely complicated and difficult and involved so much learning to figure out how to properly professionalize my visual art. So I have so much respect for the layers that go into, doing the work. Again, it's no joke. So that is something I'm really excited to finally bring to bear, to go from, printing and framing on an individual level to, finding a company that can fulfill my orders to individual buyers in a way that's more hands-off for me, but that also meets a high standard. I'm also working on a project with HEC, the business school, and SASM for a music and sustainability project that I proposed to them, and which won their support, which is great. So we're working for the next 4 months together on how to test the vision for that project. Things like that. I'm probably forgetting a lot of stuff, but I really try to be very active. I also coach singers, not a lot, but that's a really part-time thing that I do that feels like a really nice way to use my knowledge and pass it along. And I'm, working here in France and getting ready to structure a whole new set of shows around this coming album. I always would love to connect with other creatives, and I was really excited to see that this is your pandemic baby, if I can call it that. And there are so many of us out there, working to just stay in a good feeling place, because I think making art is as much about making art as it is about nurturing ourselves and, feeling, again, that sense of rootedness in the world. Thank you for creating something that, allows for community ties and allows for us as artists to see that, there are others like us. And, because a lot of this kind of work that I'm describing and you're describing is so personal and is so individual that it can make you feel like, where is that community? And actually we're out there, we're all out here in Paris doing the work and elsewhere doing the work.
It's so true. And it can be a very alone time making art or creating, but we can all come together and share too. And I love how your work, it seems to always combine nature and creativity in some ways, like they overlap. And it's really beautiful to see because there is that connection. And where can people connect with you online and learn more and see more of your work?
Sure. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to spell my Instagram, which my Instagram handle is at I am Mari Rosa, which is a difficult name. It looks like I am Mari Rosa, MARIROSA. And my website is just my name, marirosa.com. Looks like marirosa.com. MARIROSA.com. And I have a pinned post on my Instagram, which links up to my art account, which is relatively new. So if anyone ever wants to check out the visual art from my musicians' Instagram, they can find it very easily.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you so much for chatting with us today. And we will share all of that in the show notes, guys. Check out her music. I love her music and her art. It's all beautiful. And I can't wait to see what you'll do next.
You circled slowly the moment we met. Could see you were lonely, always on the defense. I didn't mean to, but I sure fell in. Could tell that your troubles would nurse all my sin. And ooh, we're floating on a twist of bait. Our hesitation gets ripped apart. Little shark, little shark. Little shark, little shark. not use my heart. Now I see you, darling, little shark. I used to peer through the glass and not use my heart. Now I see you, darling, little shark. Little shark, little shark, little shark, little shark.